as at a high level, this call is here so that you can learn from us, what we're doing, how we're taking your feedback, how we're implementing it, what's going on in the product, and so that you can learn from each other, right? Like this calls for everyone. Anyone who is curious about automation and like has a technical mind, but it is also very much geared towards the builders. Yeah, basically, like one of the things I wanted to say was you're actually going to be hearing a little bit more from us this week because we really want to kick off the kind of like that business executive ownership call where we're really focused on what is that automation center of excellence and how do we apply these conversations at that leadership translation layer down, right? And so one of the things that I would love to hear from all of you guys who attend and who are building regularly is what topics from a technical point of view, what sort of things would you want leadership to understand? Like what do you think would make your organization successful in an automation center of excellence, right? How can we translate these conversations so that we can build the bigger picture, right? And so you'll be hearing a little bit from us on that side of things, as well as the time zone piece. People have been pointing out that for a while now that there's like obviously time zone struggles with the call. So we're getting big enough. We need to start branching some stuff out. So we're going to be also putting some details out about what timings might work for additional regional calls for you guys this coming week as well. So stay tuned for information about that. Look out in your Discord, look out in your email. We'll be getting in touch with you about what you guys want because these are your calls. But yeah, okay, so I rambled enough. Did somebody post the link to Flow? I heard it mentioned. I'm not sure if somebody followed through. If you haven't, Automation Conference, get your automation interested people to go there. It's going to be great. It's going to be filled with talks with your peers, and like that's like the people you want to learn from, right? In Discord. I was just posting on LinkedIn about it, like building this community of practice around what it is that we're trying to do and solve really helps us all grow. So without further ado, I am actually going to turn it over to Nick for our development update.
Thanks, Ashe. I'll go ahead and share my screen and we'll talk about some updates from the product and engineering team. So we will start right here. All right, dev team's been hard at work and we've got some small new features and a bunch of fixes. We introduced support for custom HTML in our built-in SendMail action to allow advanced email formatting. We've added success and fail states to the GraphQL time-saved workflow endpoint, which allows us to return those in the workflow actions that pull time saved. So those could be added to reports, and I'm sure we will use those when we add additional time-saved metrics in our dashboard. We're ensuring that only enabled organizations appear in the test as user feature. Showing workflow shortcut keys on right click in the workflow canvas. I'll actually show that off in just a minute because it's kind of a cool feature that I don't think a lot of people know about. Increased the max page size for Datto PSA. We updated the org picker to remove Rewst staff from the top level. We changed estimated hours parameter in Datto PSA to use numbers instead of integers, which should allow things like flip to bleed. Some fixes. Fixed a missing custom integration icon in the favorites menu. We fixed a note resizing issue for workflow notes. Bitdefender integration issues for generic requests have been resolved. We stopped the Google Workspace admin create new org unit action from crashing the page. We had a front end bug there. We corrected dropped query parameters for forms users requiring login. Added a fix for forms emptying dropdowns causing Jinja evaluations to fail. Corrected the ConnectWise managed date formatting. corrected the pop-up button URL in Workflow Builder when opening scripts rather than templates. And we displayed a Boolean field for the create org form that accidentally got changed to a drop-down. We reverted that back to a checkbox. Fixed error when refreshing data PSA get roles action parameter. Remove duplicate ConnectWise PSA update contact action fields. Fixed IT portal update field for ID action name. Updated IT portal update field for ID action value parameter to a string. Handled null values in the Workflow Builder task form more gracefully. Added categories to crates for upcoming searchability improvements. Added actions for upcoming SyncMonkey integration. We've added a new CSS tool for us on the development side called Tailwind that will allow us to create higher fidelity designs provided to us by our amazing design team. We removed some unnecessary console log warnings for cleaner log. Pruned workflow executions in batches to optimize the database performance there, and updated our integrations so that they refresh authentication twice per day. And so let's show off a couple things here. So in the Workflow Builder canvas, if you hold the Shift key and then drag your mouse, you can actually select multiple items at once, and you can move them around. And this has been here for a bit, but the new thing that was recently added was we added some documentation here for hotkeys. So when you right-click inside one of these selection boxes, you can perform actions on all of the selected workflow tasks. In this case, if you want to duplicate them, you can Control-D, which will give you a duplicate of those actions. And then I'm actually going to draw another box here after I move that, and then I can hit Escape to get out of this one, or I can click off of it, and I'll hold Shift and select these ones. And in this case, I'm just going to delete all the selected actions that I just created. And there we go. So little hot tip right there. I do want to show another thing that hasn't been released yet. I was working with Jamie during our Rewst kickoff meeting, which is really helpful for us to meet all of our other team members and really talk about work in a personal setting, since we're a full remote company. We always have lots of ideas and good information sharing. One of the things that Jamie brought to me was time saved being, buried inside a workflow, and having to go into the workflow and be notified to figure out if time is even saved on that workflow and then update it. And that can be really arduous. And so what I've done is I've added a time saved column to the workflow list that will show the configured time saved for that particular workflow. You can sort it like all the other columns, and then if it's 0 or unset, you'll see a configure button. And when you click on that, it will bring up what was previously the edit tags dialog. I've changed that to edit workflow attributes. You can still set all your tags there, but additionally, you can also configure your time saved. So if we do this, we can go and save, and now that workflow has time saved. You can always get back to this by clicking on the hamburger menu and hitting edit attributes, which will bring up that screen, and you can go back to 0. However, I hate to do this to you guys. You can't have negative time saved. I'm sorry. But you can go back to 0 if you misset it. And of course, we can still add all the tags like we did previously. So this will be deployed next week. And I hope that makes it easier for you to see which of your workflows have time saved, which ones don't, and then quickly set it. And with that, I believe that's all I have for this week. Does anybody have any questions?
Rod, did you have a question?
Yep. Just a question on the time saved, because I was something I was just working with recently. I know that time saved right now goes for every time that workflow runs. But like what I'd like to say is, like, I've set up workflows to run multiple times, say per day, to collect information. But the thing is we normally wouldn't do something like that often. So trying to figure, like I would say, by having this workflow run at this schedule per week, it will save us X amount of time per week, regardless of how many times that runs. If we had a way to configure something like that, as opposed to it to go for every time that it runs, would be useful. If you understand what I mean?
Yep, I totally understand what you mean. I think that's some really good feedback. I think that time save could be a lot more robust. That's the first time I've heard that suggestion, though. So definitely thank you for bringing that up. If anybody else has, suggestions for how they'd like to see time saved enhanced in the future, we definitely like to hear that. You can reach out to us in Discord or, wrangle Daniel, our product manager, if you have any great ideas for time saved.
I have a suggestion for time savings.
Go ahead, Kelvin.
Something other than
Somebody.
negative.
Okay, all right, I'll drop it.
Just to build on that request, it's a great idea. I really like it. I just want to make sure, Nick, that when you are considering it, I think having flexibility of choosing which unit per workflow, and so then you could just do the math. Or so like we can say time saved X per day, per run, per week, per month, and then you just do the math on the back end. So like giving a unit selector would basically then solve, I think, the problem and actually give us that greater reporting.
Yeah, definitely.
I could add into that as well.
Yeah.
So one of the things I'd look for, and it doesn't apply as much to the MSP I'm in now, but the last one I was in, where we had multiple different departments and different tiers of people, a workflow may save a level 1 person 10 minutes, or it may save a level 1 person 10 minutes and a level 2 person 15 minutes. We don't have a way to capture that to be able to quantize in dollars what the savings is. But if I were able to actually add like profiles of different levels or different ways I'm saving time, that would be great.
That's
Yeah,
literally what I
especially when you're
raised my hand
considering
for.
junior technicians, right? They might take longer to figure something out and work through something, but you still want them to have the opportunity so they can learn and try. But there's a lot that needs to be captured there too.
Or
I
as a
mean,
matter
obviously,
of
as like first year interns.
who would normally be doing it is, because if you're saving 12 hours off of a service desk person, or you're saving 12 hours off of a level 3 support person, it may be the same amount of time, but it has different value.
Yeah, because
That's
there's different
exactly my
impacts.
point, Rod. Yeah, I mean, for instance, when we were doing DNS filter, when you were adding somebody to an allow list, you normally would take maybe our level 1 person 10 minutes, but then we'd have to have an admin go in there and make the changes, and that person's more expensive. So by having the workflow, I'm saving level 3 person time that I don't even have to deal with, and then saving the level 1 person's time as well.
Yeah. Would it make sense to, instead of trying to map different workflows to different job roles, to just have like a dollars saved in addition to like time saved, like saves this many hours, but would be this many dollars.
Yeah, then we can go
just
units.
Just a time type. Yeah, you can set different time types: a tier 1 time, a tier 2 time, a tier 3 time. And when you say how much time it's saving, you're saying it's saving 1 hour of tier 1 time, and it's saving half an hour of tier 3 time.
Cool.
Hey, Nick. Yeah, the thing is, if we set the dollars as people's pay changes, or we hire another L3 or whatever, that would get complicated, right? Like if we could refer to their cost, the cost per role averaged from PSA, maybe, but then that's getting into which PSA has that or whatever. Maybe something inside of Rewst where you could say, okay, this is how we quantify dollars per minute saved or whatever on the average, or something like that.
Yeah, you really hit the key point there, Jim. That made it click for me, because if you wanted to change that at any point in the future, you'd want to one-shot it instead of having to go into every workflow and update all of them.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of variables here, a lot of good ideas. Something you guys might want to consider is just
Bring it up
saving.
in Kenny.
Well, no, save some of these values in your workflows, and you can build your own workflow to calculate the way you want to. So you could create maybe a completion handler workflow that would, within the workflow that's running, define how many hours or minutes of certain, pay types or technician types are being saved when this workflow runs, and then have your completion handler calculate that and store that somewhere within your own systems.
So this is Tim saying, you build it for us and we'll put it in our platform. It's already done.
Well, not necessarily. It's really just
back to the community. Is what I'm hearing.
Well, I mean, there's
He's
a lot
giving you a
of
fast way to do
there's
it.
a lot of different ways people are going to want this to work. So if we tried to productize it, we'd probably hit 10% of what people want. Whereas you could build it yourself and build it the way you want and store it directly where you want.
Yeah, I was actually just going to add like another level of complexity to it. So I completely get where you're going from. Because there is this consideration of like being able to look at a workflow time savings and be like, if a tier 1 had done it, it would have cost X amount. If a tier 3 would have done it, it would have cost Y amount. And then there's also the side of like, it does take both a tier 1 and tier 3. So we want to sum both as opposed to comparing either or, right? So like it's a whole nother dimension.
Yeah, and there's also the overall.
There's a lot of things you can do
for
with it.
different processes. So
Yeah.
there's just so many variables. Like
we had like a transform or something where you can set your own dynamic variables and stuff like that for how you wanted to collect it. That would be cool if it's all be able to be done in Jinja. Let's jump over. I feel like JP has been like, that was such a great conversation, guys.
Yeah, thank you all so much.
Let's jump over to JP because he's got some marketplace updates for us.
Thanks, Ashe. All right. Hello, everyone. And the marketplace this week, we add some functionality for Agent Smith into our refactored PowerShell sub-workflow. And over the past few weeks, we've released a lot of big content. So we've made a substantial number of adjustments. Most of these are pretty minor things and don't impact edge cases or functionality. In our coming soon section, we have the same stuff as last week. We've made a lot of progress on the Windows 11 compliance checks crate, so that should be released soon. And an ongoing theme throughout over the course of the next month is going to be surrounding exerting effort and making building easier with our automation toolkits. So that's something we're probably going to continue to work on over the next month. We did release in here, since it was it's kind of a feature, but it's kind of not, some SureWeb licensing stuff. So you can check that out in the notes if you use SureWeb. So that's it for Marketplace this week.
Thank you, JP. All right, now it is time for us to jump over to Brandon for our education update.
Hey, everybody. Let me share my screen real quick here. Sorry, Amanda, I could not find my small Lego hat, so next time. All right, let's jump in here. Start off with the game tip of the week. Really, I just thought it was interesting. Today, we got a patent for the Switch 2 Joy-Cons, and they are indeed going to act like mice. So I'm curious. I want to hear from you guys in the chat. What do you guys think that's going to open up for us? What kind of games are we going to see? And are you getting a Switch 2? That's my big question. I would love to see if they had mouse and keyboard with Final Fantasy XIV or Dragon Quest X come from Japan to America, but that's my super nerdy take. Love to hear from you guys. Ooh, Mario Paint. I saw that in there. That's a good one. Nice. I like that. All right. Shout outs to Gene, Mart, Ali, Paul, Mark, and Niels for passing the Foundations certification this week. You guys will get your certified Rooster badge in Discord, and you will get access to our super secret channel. And shout outs to Charlie, Kevin, and Shane for passing the Clean Automation certification as well. I just want to highlight here, we got some really great feedback about Clean Automation. If some of you guys here haven't taken that course, there are some people that we heard from that the Clean Automation course was essential for them being able to build effectively in Roost. And some people were even saying they wish they had gotten Clean Automation as soon as they started building. So I would highly, highly recommend taking a look at that course, either self-serve or with the legendary Eddie Chow. And of course, if you haven't taken boot camp yet, or the Foundations course yet, we have boot camps available. The next ones are scheduled for March 3rd and 4th. And we are looking to increase some of our offerings in that schedule as well. So keep an eye out on that. We will keep you guys updated. Otherwise, if you guys are actively building, feel free to come let us know what questions you have or challenges you are working through in the CluckU Discord. Thank you for everybody who participates, gives us feedback, but also has great questions. There's a great thriving community there, and Eddie, Clea, myself, Trish, Tim, a lot of people will jump in and are happy to answer questions from our side as well. And don't forget those office hours. If you guys have any questions, feel free to jump in. You'll get some time with Eddie as well. And that can be really helpful as you are going through and learning to apply what we have in CluckU. Last couple of things here. We have a number of updates to our documentation pages, but one of the things I really want to highlight is for anybody new here, if you are struggling with trying to figure out where to start, we talk about that a lot in our courses, so definitely check out CluckU. But we have a new Automation Jumpstart page that we have just launched, and there are 4 automations there that should take you 30 minutes or less to get going. We want to continue to increase that offering. We had 3 last week. We have 4 this week. Shout outs to Trish for that 4th one. And if anybody in the community has any ideas, especially from some of you veterans, about automations that were small, easy to configure, but ended up being essential or an essential building block that you use down the road, feel free to ping us and let us know. We'd love to get that into the Jumpstart as well, so we can just continue to funnel that information to our newbies and get them up and running faster and more effectively. So we'd love to hear from you guys as well.
I would say
otherwise,
ask your newbies what they want.
Yep, absolutely. Doing that too. Yeah, good shout. Otherwise, feel free to jump into some of these forums, and Canny, if you have any requests or feedback for us, or you can ping us directly. And that's going to be it for us this week.
Thank you, Brandon. All right, so we are going to jump into our first demo. And I still haven't heard from Trey, so I don't think that, well, if he gets back to me before Brian's done, then we'll jump over to what's next. But for now, we will jump over to Brian.
Thanks, Ash. Let me share my screen here real quick. And where I want to kind of start out with is a little bit of a shout out for the Rewst Docs team, right? You've seen all 3 of the people that come before me have used docs.rewst.help as the basis for what they're showing you. You know, this is one of the most powerful tools that Rewst has given us as automators is the documentation behind their platform. You know, they post, you know, updates, lessons. Everything that we've seen so far is hosted right here on this site. The problem that I think maybe we have as end users is, how do we know how to stay up to date on those things? It's not always clear, other than, you know, if they call it out or shout it out in their weekly updates, what's been added or what's been changed, or what our new pages do we have, because sometimes you can't attend the call, and sometimes maybe it's not clear exactly what it is. So I actually want to show off a workflow that I have today that I am partway in development on the workflow side, but I can show you all the setup steps for it, for how I stay up to date on Rewst documentation. So behind the scenes, Rewst docs are built on Getbook. Getbook is natively integrated with GitHub. GitHub has a robust notification system. One of those is a webhook, one is email, all of these things that you can do behind the scenes to be able to do all of this. So I built out a stupidly simple 5 steps that I can show you today on how you can do the basics of setting up your own notification system that can go to wherever you want it to through Rewst for when something new is posted, so you want to be able to learn the latest and the greatest. I have this link on my blog. I will post this link when I get done because pro tip, if you're ever speaking, minimize chat so that they don't distract you. But it's a 5-step process. So there's some prerequisites that we need here. You need a GitHub account. If you don't have one, sign up for one. GitHub is ridiculously vital to be able to start to learn how to dev better. And there's maybe some cool tools I've heard at some point in time. You'll need my notes are kind of genericized, but you'll need a repository, and that's the docs.rewst.help repository in the Rewst repo. You'll need an app called Pull. And then I genericize this because I hope to say this out, but you might need some your preferred automation of platform of choice. Obviously mine is Rewst because, it's my hammer and I turn everything into a nail. So first things first is we want to set up just kind of like a basic workflow. So I've got this one set up. It's named according to, I have stolen a lot of the ROC naming conventions because I think it kind of makes sense, and named it how I should. And I've set up this webhook URL for my workflow. And this is going to be the basics of what I need for now, because the rest of the workflow is actually going to come later. Now that I've got that set up, what I next need to be able to do is I need to be able to set up notifications on this GitHub repo for docs.rewst.help. To be able to do that, I can't just edit anything on this screen. I don't have write access or permissions to their repo. So what I had to do is I actually had to fork my own copy. So specific get type of action that just means that now in my repo, I have my own copy of what is in theirs. When I get to my own, you'll see inside of my own repo, I actually have some additional options here. Actually, if I hit refresh, it's up to date. So what I see in here is I've got my own settings tab, and this is where I can set up notifications. If I wanted to, I could do something really, hang on. I sat long enough, it logged me out. So I could just do something really simple. I could go in here and set up email notifications. They're not terrible. You get this email in your inbox. As you see, I have a different repo that I currently get emailed notifications for when updates are made to it, because it's kind of fun to keep up with projects that you like and contribute to. Email is fine. Email is okay. But if you're looking at this here, you're probably thinking like I do, my goodness, that's a lot of really weirdly formatted text. Where's the important stuff? So I didn't really like email so much. The better and more robust option for me was to set up a webhook. I've got my webhook set up here. I'm not going to click that because I know at least 9 people in this chat that would take that webhook and start smashing their own messages towards it. And haha, nope, not going to do it. But what I can do is, just add a webhook. I would copy in the webhook that I set up over here and paste it in, and then, set it to JSON. I have found that when I'm doing this, I only need to have this selected for just the push event. That's the only time that any of the actual updates get saved into my repo version. If you wanted a fire hose, go ahead and set up send me everything. It'll be, quite a lot of information if you're doing things outside of just the Rewst Docs one. And if it's on a project that you're like actively contributing code to, you can get really overwhelmed with that much information. But, this is a pretty straightforward forward way to be able to handle it. Once you have the notifications set up, if you're unfamiliar with GitHub, it's actually really pretty straightforward in terms of, your project doesn't automatically update to stay up to date with what they call the upstream repo. So you have to be able to set up something that automates that process for you so that when the docs site gets updated, your fork also gets updated. There's a GitHub app called Pull. It's an absolutely fantastic product. Sponsor if you can. Open source lives based off of its sponsors, if you did not know that. So sponsor your favorite projects. If I didn't already have this installed, there's a little install button here instead of configure. Click install. You're actually going to have some options when this is installed. It will give you the option as to whether you want to set it up on all repositories, or if you're contributing to like multiple GitHub repos, you can actually then narrow it down to like only select repos. So it's only looking at your docs repo, because for whatever reason, you may not always want to stay down to the minute up to date with the upstream repo. You might need an ability to be able to pull in updates when you want to. So now that I've got that set, Pull just needs one little bitty change. In the .github folder, there's a pull.yml that has to be created. This doesn't get made for you. You just need to make it. It's got to follow this exact format. I've got that in my blog notes. And you want to tell it to merge. That means that it will, every time the docs updates happen in the upstream repository, my repository will automatically use the merge action for any of those pull requests that come through. So now that I've got it all in place, it's actually really pretty straightforward. This whole system with the webhook in place, pull in place, and once they make the docs updates, then it just kind of fires off one of the webhooks over to me, and we'll take a look. And I mean, you can see I've only had it up for a couple of days, but I've had a bunch of different update workflows come through. So let's take a look at what the workflow kind of looks like here. You can see, a bunch of actions ran down below, and you get this big blob of body. And I don't know, I don't think this kind of a workflow could ever let me down.
Did you just rickroll us live on air?
I rickrolled you live on air. Actually, here's the best part. I haven't even actually built the workflow. These are all no-ops. So one of the really nice things, though, is I just showed this, again, as an example of being able to stay up to date for Rewst Docs, because, I've been challenged internally at my organization to start mentoring other people across the company to be able to start learning automation too. They're going to start valuing and putting some more resources behind it. They also realize they've got all their eggs in one basket. And if I walk out tomorrow and I get hit by a bus, there's nobody to replace me. So one of the things that I wanted to do is be able to highlight and bring to the group more tools that they can have to be able to see when things are being updated, when they're being changed. And we've done a lot of work. I've done a lot of work internally on, channeling more of those notifications to different teams channels. And this is just going to be another extension of that, because it's really easy for us to be able to then track what we're looking at. But, like I showed earlier, I've been trying to help where I can on like SIP, mostly in documentation, and I'm able to watch that type of a repo. I know there are a lot of other folks around this community that are highly open source involved, so being able to get them, the information that they need and being able to stay up to date. I just thought this was a really simple process to be able to scale it and even further beyond what is just today. But yeah, I don't know. I liked it. Plus, who doesn't pass up a chance to rickroll 100 and something people on a live call?
All right, thank you, Brian. All right, so we're going to jump. Rod, I'm not sure if you wanted to present something, or I didn't keep up with your channel, whether you were in a state to. But we've also got Tim, who can talk a little bit about Agent Smith first, if we want, and then if you wanted to go into that afterwards, we could.
Yeah, if I'm going to show this, I'd like to show it work. I'm doing one run here to see if I can get, if it actually goes completely successful. As I said, my problem is separating this into 3 lists, and every time I'm trying to do it, one of the lists is too big and causing an error. So I'm working some stuff to get it right. If I get it right, then I'll show it. But if not, then I'll wait till next week.
No, that works. And then we might have some other people who can pop in as well. So why don't we jump over to Tim to start with?
Sure, give me just a second here. I just want to give you guys a quick update on Agent Smith. It's been a minute since we've talked about it, so we have a lot of people who may not have heard about it or may want to hear some of the updates that we have. So for those that don't know, Agent Smith is a very lightweight agent we built. We built it for people who maybe don't have an RMM. We're getting some MSPs and smaller companies with that issue, or they do have an RMM, but it executes things very slowly. Or they may have an RMM that doesn't have an API call that lets us run stuff. So, and a lot of our automations, we need to run things on-premise devices, PCs or servers. So if we're doing like a user on board, for companies that have on-prem Active Directory, we need a way to run those commands. And we typically just write a PowerShell script, push that through to an RMM, and let it run. So this is a way of getting that ability without necessarily having an RMM that we have a good interaction with. The way it works is we use the Microsoft Azure IoT Hub, and we do this by having you guys, the customer, set up your own instance of that IoT Hub. That gives you a lot more control and visibility on what's going on. And the way it works is when you install the agent, it's going to create a connection to this IoT Hub using a protocol called MQTT. And we send commands from our workflow to that IoT Hub over our Azure integration. So then the agent gets a message saying, hey, here's some PowerShell that we want you to run. The agent is then going to spawn an interpreter, run that PowerShell. The PowerShell, just like with other RMMs, sends a response, including the results of that PowerShell, back to the Rewst workflow, and then continues on its way. The way that we get you guys set up with it is there's a few crates. There's 3 crates in total. The first two are the only ones you really need. These handle the device provisioning and the service provisioning. So the workflows that it takes to set up your agent, plus the workflows it takes to set up the Azure service to begin with. Again, that Azure service, you're going to run in your own subscription. So you create one instance of it in your subscription. The cost is either free or very cheap. there are limits with the free tier that you don't have if you go with the standard tier. We have instructions in the forms and the automations that set it up to kind of help you along the way. But for those that are curious, it's something about like $25 per month for the standard tier, which then becomes usage based, but the usage is extremely cheap. There is a free tier, but the problem with the free tier is that if you do find that you're going to exceed that, you kind of have to start all over. You have to wipe it and start fresh with the standard tier. There's no upgrade path from one to the other. This third crate is if you wanted to go kind of beyond just running some of your scripts in the existing workflows, and you wanted to, collect data from your agents. If you want to set up stuff like automatic check-in and sending device inventory up to Rewst for you to do stuff with, this third kind of gets you started with that. So a little bit of news that we have for it is we're now officially supporting it. So if you want to use it and you get stuck, have issues, the ROC is here to help you with it. And the other big thing is we had a lot of people that were having issues with the MQTT connection in environments where they're firewalling off things that are not just regular web traffic. So we support connection over WebSockets, which lets it run over HTTPS, basically. So you no longer have to open firewalls to that 8883 or 333, I forget the port number, for MQTT. This will work over WebSockets. The traffic profile is not quite as lightweight, but it's still pretty lightweight. Just some links for documentation. We've also moved the docs in our site to kind of outside the community corner into more of an official location to make it obvious that this is a part of what we can help you guys with. We still have chat and support in Discord as well. So we have our community, especially if you want to just kind of get experimental with it. If you wanted to try some stuff and ask your peers what they're doing with the agent, use that Discord channel, but you're also free to open tickets and ask for help. A little bit about the setup before I turn it over. There's a form that you install with the crate that helps to get these things set up. You're just going to select your Azure subscription. If this fails or you have issues with this, then make sure that you're going through your Azure setup docs in the documentation first. But you set your location, you create your IoT hub. It's got a little bit of information about the costs, and then it just deploys everything in your Azure environment. To get the agents deployed, there's a similar form that'll give you, basically you get a PowerShell snippet of some stuff that you can just copy and paste directly into an agent. But if you want to take it a step further and orchestrate the deployment of the agent using your RMM or Intune or group policy objects, this kind of wanted to break down a little bit how it works. So that PowerShell you're given, it's going to run some commands to get the URL of the latest agent version and get that thing downloaded, and then it's going to run an install command to install it. So if you look at this last command, the structure of the URL and the org ID and config secret is something that you would build into your RMM. So the trigger and the org ID are going to be unique to your organization, as well as the configuration secret. But then the org ID means that you can pass this as an install parameter, use your customer org IDs as this parameter, and that's how it associates with a customer. The cool thing about this, and also one of the reasons why people might want to use it if they have an RMM that still does the job, is every now and then there's somebody who might have two logical customers in their RMM or in their PSA that they treat differently but have the same Active Directory environment. With the Agent Smith app, we can actually install this app and service multiple times. and it'll register itself as a service associated with each of those sub-organizations. So you could have a domain controller that is, the Rewst DC for 2 separate customers, and it'll work with this setup. But that's basically it. If anybody has any questions on this and wants to know more, look in our docs, look in the Agent Smith channel in Discord, or ask your CSM or ROC person for help. And that's what I got.
All right. Thank you, Tim. Unless anybody has any questions, is 10 minutes?
One quick question about it.
Okay.
Just with it, if you were setting this up to use with multiple clients, would you have to have the Azure IoT thing for each of them, or could you use your own instance and use it for all your clients?
Yeah, the way it's intended to be set up is you set this up at the MSP level. And then when your agents register, they register with the org ID of that client. Hello? So you just need the one instance of the IoT hub.
I'm mute. You, Austin.
What's happening?
No.
Cool. Thank you.
There you go. Oh. Hello? Not sure if I lost everybody. Are we all still here?
I think
We're still here.
We're here.
Yep.
I see.
Okay.
I'm still here.
Still connected.
All right. Cool. So I don't know if we were finished answering that question. I kind of got a little bit distracted by that. Are we good?
Yep, I got my answer.
Okay. All right. Cool. So we have 9 minutes left. Trey, I know you just jumped on. I don't know if that's enough time for you, if we want to vote, or if you wanted to wait, we can also just jump to Q&A. So it's up to you.
I don't care. My thing's quick. It's time entry, so it's not that long. So
All right. Let's do it.
I'll get into it and do a short version.
Okay, cool.
So Ashe asked for a back to the basics topic, and something we all probably are very familiar with is entering time. We all have to do it in some capacity. If you're not doing it, you're either not part of a technical team, which then is this the right call for you? Maybe not. Or you're so early into your process as an MSP or a service provider that you haven't really gotten to that need yet, which that exists. But as you scale, you got to enter time. I have Rewst enter time. There's options like time savings and whatnot that you can do, but we use Rewst to enter time for the automation it does. Why do we do that? Big things for us is business intelligence. We use Power BI for a lot of our reporting. You can use other things like Bright, Gauge, Grafana, etc., to look at what Rewst is doing. And the bigger thing for me is what I call a human time equivalent. How much time did you redirect from a human to the automation? To do that, you got to put the time in a ticket somewhere, at least for how our org is structured. You can imagine every automation uses this in some capacity. You're going to enter time. In that, when I use ConnectWise, that's our PSA, I got to do a number of things. I got to change the status to one that allows me to enter time, because we have that pretty locked down. Calculate the amount of time. Just because I say, yeah, this took 10 minutes. Well, I got to give ConnectWise a start time and an end time. And then flip the status back, along with all the error handling that needs to happen. So that came out to this automation. It's real simple when you're looking at the core of it, which is in green. That's the normal process. And all it does is it takes the current time, takes how long we're working, so number of work minutes, and outputs that. Meanwhile, it's updating the status to an input that we set based on the board we're on that allows you to enter time. It then does a quick check to make sure that ticket hours is not 0. If there's no time to submit, then this shouldn't work. And then it goes over and fails. But otherwise, it's super simple. Go down, add some time, status back, and that's the variable. So if this is the last step in an automation, flip it to your closed status. So you don't have to add another action. This just does it for you. And then we're done. Super simple automation, but something that is a core foundational piece in every single automation. And yeah, I know it's so bright out, people. Someone asked me about macOS and docs, specifically CalDigit and protocols sometime. Rewst's black dark mode does not work with some docs. It's annoying. Anyway, that's the core process. Super quick abridged version. I want to leave time for questions and Ashe to do her wrap up. So
I don't have any
Or
wrap
does
up
anyone
to
else?
do. So anybody that's got any questions, now is the time. How do you find that you're like able to just like, do you just like plug it in kind of like super dynamically anywhere you go now?
yeah, typically we'll use it in logs is the biggest one. So we went and did something. Typically that's a bigger template of logs, and then we provide that in here for the ticket note that gets added when you enter time. It's used in other areas. We'll use it if we need to just, start up a ticket or make a note that something did something. So it's real flexible, but also a simple task. For some orgs, you can honestly get away with just the create time entry task based on how your PSA is set up. For us, that doesn't work because we have our stuff's pretty locked down just because of our size. So we have to get it into the right task and then get it back out. That's added a lot of extra complexity just to make sure the statuses are up to date, especially when people and other automations could be interacting with an automation. By the time it hits that, status could have changed already. So this one's a little overkill for some of you guys, but the core concept's there.
And that's that retry loop. What does that pull
That's
back?
another. That's another one that I can get into another
You're
day.
like, that's
but
a workflow for another time.
Yeah, that's a real simple looping automation, and all you do is you throw into it how long you want to delay an increment loop, and then it'll output how many times it's looped, so you can force it to stop if you don't want it to loop. This is actually, I think, our V1. We have a newer one. That's our old one.
That's awesome. How do you is that how you handle pagination? Like, do you do something like, is it like that, or like through a sub workflow, or is it all in the same
It depends.
canvas?
That's this at our scale. It really depends, and it depends on like when you see your pagination question. It depends on what we're working with, because I wish I could give you a number of the different tool sets we have, but we have something like 16 MSPs under our umbrella now. So this is our parent company, Courser, and this is the internal stack. But if I was showing the full stack, it would be a lot of scrolling. It gets messy.
Yeah.
So it depends. Yes, but it depends, and it's way too detailed to get into in the minute or two I have left.
Thank you. Well, I love the idea of sub workflows. I would love to have an entire open mic where people just show off their sub workflows. Like I was joking with somebody else last week where it was like, we go through this like intricate workflow, and they're like, and here's a sub workflow that does insert something super awesome. And then we move on. And it's like, let's dig into that. Like, let's figure out how those things that are saving us that time, even when we're saving time, work into. So keep that in mind. If you got something you think that you would be that you'd like sharing, there's links in the Discord, but you could also DM me or talk to your customer success manager, and they can get you in touch too. So, Thank Thank you, Trey.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, JP. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Rod. Thank you, everybody, for chiming in. Did I forget anyone? It's time. Happy weekend.
Bye. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, guys.
I have a great weekend.
Bye.